Hello, everybody.
Welcome to ClassyCollegeGamer. So, in between this episode and the last one, we both died, which was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, but moving past that,
I'm Eric,
I am Grant.
and yeah, we're gonna be having this conversation with you today for the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, if you watched our last episode, we were talking about National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, and the books that we were each respectively writing for it. And as a fitting segue, we thought that this week we would talk about some of our favorite books or our favorite authors. So, if you would like to open, Eric, I don't actually know your favorite book.
Okay. My favorite book is actually a series of books written by Jim Butcher. I don't know if you guys recognize. He wrote the Dresden Files, which also made the series called the Dresden Files. But the series that he wrote was called the Codex Alera, and the basic premise of the books is that there is a kid who can't control the elements of nature in a society where people can. And he struggles with this world, which is basically a world founded on Rome. And later you find out that the people who live on this world actually come from the missing Ninth Legion who went to Britain. And so it's a really cool book. I recommend anybody who wants to read it to read it. I will say though that it is rather mature. It's not a raunchy book, but it is a mature, not for smaller audiences.
Yeah, again, I was not familiar. I had never heard of that.
Not a lot of people are, interestingly enough, but it's just a really. I feel sad.
Yeah, I have a lot of books that I could potentially call my favorites. At different points in my life and depending on my mood. One of my favorite books recently turned into a movie was Ender's Game.
Oh my gosh, I love that book, and the movie was absolutely wonderful.
The movie was pretty good for what they had to work with. I mean, I'll be honest and say that I went in with incredibly low standards, as it is one of my favorite books, and I was in the camp that they were probably going to ruin it. However, they didn't completely ruin it. They did leave some things out, but I recognize why. It was mostly
I had time to.
It was mostly because of time constraints and things like that. But overall, it was actually a really good interpretation of the book in movie form, which you don't get much of anymore. If you haven't already read Ender's Game, I suggest it to really anyone. It's an incredibly good book. Different people can take different things from it.
Yeah, and I really recommend it, despite the fact that Orson Scott Card is responsible for the book. I don't particularly like the political and social views that he has. They're kind of
I agree.
weird.
With you.
But however,
regardless, he is an excellent writer. Read not only Ender's Game, but also some of the other books that he has written in the Ender series. They tend to be slightly heavier. For Ender's Game is somewhat of an action novel, while the rest are based very heavily in philosophy and things like that.
And the interesting thing is, a lot of the philosophies that he has in his books are extremely different from the philosophies that he has personally.
Yeah, which I agree with you is interesting.
And not altogether bad. I really love the books. I just feel kind of weird supporting him by reading them, because they're excellent books and they teach really good things and they get into really deep topics, which is weird for a guy who doesn't have all that deep stuff that he thinks. But
yeah, I don't know. Regardless, like I said, he is an incredibly good writer, and he writes amazing books, and you should read them. Again, political agendas and things aside, he's a good writer. You might want to take things that he says personally.
At face value.
Yeah, just as was said in another one of my favorite books, or actually no, something similar said in one of my favorite books, but be a filter, not a sponge.
Yes.
One of my other favorite books, though, and I have a yearly tradition of reading it. You don't have a sniper rifle. Who is Marley and Me, and it's an odd tradition. It's a Christmas tradition, which is odd because it's not a Christmas book by any stretch. If you've ever read Marley and Me, it's an absolutely hilarious book about essentially how a family lives with this neurotic dog. That was also made into a movie, not nearly as good as Ender's Game in terms of adaptations.
Yeah.
It was mostly just an excuse for people to look at cute puppies.
And cry.
Yeah. But it's still, again, it's another incredibly well-written book. John Grogan, the author, was a columnist in several Florida newspapers for a while before eventually moving to Pennsylvania. And the book is actually based on a lot of his columns where he talked about the ridiculousness of his dog. So if you're a dog person especially, I will recommend it. Absolutely hilarious, heart-wrenching at times, beautifully written.
All the time. Just in
Yeah,
general.
all of the time it's beautifully written.
Yeah, another one of my favorite books, or just I just love reading them, is Redwall. I don't know
Redwall.
if you read them when you were a kid.
Yes.
But just
Yes.
Redwall. Everything about it.
Brian Jakes, I
Yes.
believe is how his name is supposed to be pronounced. Jacques Jakes.
I used to pronounce his name Jacques.
Jacques.
Yeah. I thought I
Joaquin.
was being
Brian Joaquin. No.
Brian Joaquin.
Again, I just had that.
Nice.
Very, very well written. Again, similar to a lot of Ender's Game books, actually, in that they teach
A lot of stuff.
very, very solid messages, and they're those kind of books that make me wish I had written them.
Yeah.
Again, children's books, but I feel like they're children's books that can be enjoyed by almost anybody.
Oh yeah, I read them well into my adolescence.
Yeah, one of the saddest days ever was when I found out that Brian Jakes had died.
I know, and you told me, and
You hadn't known, I guess.
cried. I
It-
didn't
it-
know. I
it
thought he was
happened-
still writing books.
No, it happened several years ago.
I was so glad I got to read his last book.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Redwall is a rather prolific series, and I have not read them all.
I have. I will say I've read them all.
Have you really?
I've made it my mission to read all of them, and there was a time when I didn't think that I had read them all, and
They're-
then it was
they're-
kind of like a bittersweet moment when I found out they were all under my belt.
Yeah, again, another set that's just incredibly
Excellent.
well written,
Excellent series of books.
great messages, and
Just it's a great
really
they're-
good characters
yeah.
as well.
They're really good books to sit down and read with your kids. Any other books? I mean, there's loads. There's literally loads.
John Green.
Oh yeah.
All John Green.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I would have to say personally, having read all of his books, Fault in Our Stars is by far the best. Not to say that his others were not as good, but if I had to pick out of all of them, that's the best. And the thing about a lot of his books, if you have not read them, you should.
Yeah.
But the thing that you should know is that I don't know if it's his mission or what,
He doesn't
but
believe in happy endings.
well, I think they are happy endings to some degree, but the happiness does not come in your standard fairy tale happy endings.
Yes. Yes. It's mine. I have a crossbow.
They don't come in your standard fairy tale happy endings. They come in terms of more realizations and growing up life messages, which can be happy endings.
And can be not. I know that one of my friends, her name is Josie. She couldn't finish reading Looking for Alaska because she was so upset with John Green.
Yeah, Looking for Alaska was one that makes you particularly angry, I felt. I mean, Fault in Our Stars honestly does as well, but yeah, he's another one of my favorite authors. There's a lot of authors who I wouldn't necessarily call my favorite, but who are nonetheless incredibly good authors.
Cormac McCarthy is one of those. He's really, really weird. He's a weird dude, but he's got really cool books. The Road I think is the most honest depiction of any apocalypse of any form, because it's real. It's not like glorified or fantasized in any way. It's just
On a similar kind of note, George Orwell is, of course, a master of his craft. There's an interesting story by George Orwell that most people probably have not read, but it is called, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's called Shooting an Elephant in... I don't remember exactly where.
No.
He was in, like... He was somewhere in Malaysia. And, you're moving in slow motion. But it's literally about his time in the military where he had to shoot and kill an elephant because it was destroying a village.
double points.
And it's very odd, really, reading, because it's literally about several pages long. It's a short story about how he prepared and killed this elephant, which is not something that I generally enjoy reading about. Not a huge hunting fan.
Yeah, I know. Killing elephants, not exactly.
Not my pastime of choice.
No. I will thoroughly agree to that. Not my pastime of choice.
Hello, monkeys.
But also, this was an interesting thing that my mom showed me. Yes.
Wow. Oh, it teased me. It teased me with the HK.
It was a book that my mom showed me while it was still free on Amazon. It was one of the free books a couple years ago. It's a book series called The Book of Deacon. You can see what the trend is here. I love book series. It's called The Book of Deacon, and it's so good. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it. A lot of people say that he couldn't exactly decide what genre or what audience that he wanted the book to be for, because there's a lot of childlike moments to the book. It's a fantasy story, but there are also some really, really graphic, violent parts to the book that you wouldn't exactly want kids to read. And it's interesting, and it's just interesting because of that. It had one of the most satisfying endings to a story. To me, it was a better cathartic experience than when I finished Harry Potter.
Mm. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've read a lot of good books in my time. Oh, well, I don't know how he even began to skip over this. Phantom Tollbooth.
Oh, yeah.
Are you one of the people that I know that has not read Phantom Tollbooth?
Yes.
Then you are not a human being yet. I truly and honestly believe that you cannot know good literature until you've read the Phantom Tollbooth. I have never met anybody who has read the Phantom Tollbooth and not liked it. And if you have read the Phantom Tollbooth and not liked it, what is wrong with you? Like, it's written, it's for children, basically. However, anybody that reads it can get something out of it. Norman Jester's the author. I'm not really sure if he's written anything else, because this was definitely his magnum opus. And
it's like, why would you want to do anything after that?
Yeah, he didn't need to. It is such a good book. Like, there are childlike moments, but it is an incredibly fun read, and it teaches everybody something. No matter who you are, it will teach you something, either about the world or about yourself, both of which I believe are very important things to learn about.
Yeah.
And it's, oh my god, I can't even begin to describe why it is so good, just that it is. There is nothing... I have really no faults with this book.
Oh, well, this is unfortunate because I'm running the wrong direction.
It is. However, I have a ray gun.
You should run.
We'll make it my goal to do.
Okay, so describe the Phantom Tollbooth to me. I'm interested.
Alright, so there's this boy, whose name, unfortunately... Milo, that's his name. And he is just basically not interested in anything. Everything bores him, kind of. And he's trying to... I mean, there's kind of mild illusions that he has a bad home life, although that's never expressly stated. Mm-hmm. But he's basically just bored with everything until one day this package arrives at his at his house. It's a very, very large package addressed to him. And he opens it, and inside is a toll booth and a car. And when he goes through it, he goes to this fantasy world, and it's incredibly well developed. It's, again, teaches you so much, and it's incredibly funny as well.
Yeah, I get the feeling that that's the what you shoot for when you write a story.
Yeah, again, it hits on absolutely everything that a good story has, I think. He's Milo by no means is a hero at the beginning of the book, but he becomes a hero, which again is kind of a cathartic and refreshing experience to some degree, watching a character that you truly like become a better character. But it looks like we are beginning to run over on time, so we can finish up this Dog John really quick. Any last books or authors or even short stories, anything that you would like to talk about?
There's a short story that I read. It's very, very short. It's called What Dragons Prefer, and it literally anything I say about the story will spoil it, except that there's a dragon hunter that goes into a town and he needs, or I think it's a she needs to slay a dragon. It's so tongue-in-cheek. Like, you think it's a rather serious story up until the end, and then you read the ending, and it's hilarious.
All right, really quick, my last word. 2 other short stories that you should read if you have not already. There's one that's a series. It's about the Nasarema. Look that up. And also, if you haven't read this, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Both incredibly good stories. But for now, this is us signing off. I'm Grant.
I'm Eric.
And stay